For years, Meghan Markle told the world the same polished story. She was the only daughter of Doria Ragland, her strong, resilient mother who raised her alone and stood by her through every storm of royal life. But what if I told you that story? This carefully crafted image Meghan has sold to the world wasn't the whole truth. What if behind the royal titles, Netflix documentaries, and speeches about identity, there was a missing piece? Because whispers are growing louder. Old California records, hushed family conversations, and even DNA coincidences suggest something shocking. Meghan Markle might not be Doria's only daughter. That's right, Doria may have had another child long before Meghan was born, a sister hidden in the shadows, erased from the official family story. And when Meghan reportedly learned about this, she was speechless, stunned, silent, just like her mother had once been with her. If these claims are true, we're not just talking about rewriting Meghan's family tree, we're rewriting her entire identity. So let's rewind. Let's go back to those mysterious years when Doria Ragland vanished from public life. No one knew where she was. Court records in Riverside, California hint at something, but the files are sealed. Why? What was so dangerous, so secret, that it had to be buried? And then there's the DNA test, the bombshell that pulled the past right back into the light. Doria's mysterious disappearance. For years, royal watchers and even Meghan's fans have asked, where was Doria Ragland during some of the most important years of Meghan's childhood? Her presence is like a diary with torn-out pages. One moment she's there, smiling in photos, the next, gone without a trace. 2 separate court cases linked to her name appeared in Riverside records. What were they about? No one knows, because they're locked away. And that silence, that missing timeline, feels deliberate. Some people believe Doria was simply keeping a low profile, living quietly away from the spotlight. Others whisper something darker. Because when you rise to the level of being photographed next to royalty, those missing years suddenly matter, and the silence starts to feel less like peace and more like cover-up. And maybe, just maybe, that silence wasn't even about Doria herself. Maybe it was about someone else. Meghan's changing story. When Meghan talks about her childhood, it always sounds rehearsed, polished, almost too polished. She paints the picture of a biracial girl raised by a single strong black mother in Los Angeles, a mother who taught her grace, kindness, resilience. A lovely, inspiring story, but look closer and you'll notice it shifts. Sometimes she claims her father, Thomas Markle, was always there and loving. In other interviews, he fades into the background, forgotten. Even her academic history doesn't add up neatly. Did she really major in international relations? University records suggest not exactly. It's like puzzle pieces that don't fit. Yet Meghan built her entire public identity on them. And behind all the royal drama, all the Netflix cameras, there's a quieter, more unsettling question. Who is Meghan Markle really when her story keeps changing every time she tells it? The DNA bombshell. The turning point came in 2021. On her podcast Archetypes, Meghan casually dropped a revelation. She had taken a DNA test and discovered she was 43% Nigerian. The world went wild. Headlines exploded. Meghan smiled proudly, telling the story of how she called her mother, Doria, to share the news. And Doria's reaction? A long silence, a pause, and then a soft, careful reply. At the time, everyone thought that pause was emotion, maybe pride, maybe tears. But looking back now, some say it sounded less like emotion and more like recognition. Because here's the jaw-dropping twist. Meghan wasn't the first woman to tell that story. Another woman, the same story. Years before Meghan ever mentioned being 43% Nigerian, a young British writer named Georgina Lawton had already lived it. In 2017, Georgina took a DNA test. The results? She was 43% Nigerian. She FaceTimed her mother to share the news and her mother froze, silent. That exact same long pause. And when she finally spoke, it was with the same heavy tone, as if a lifelong secret had just cracked open. That moment was so life-altering that Georgina wrote a memoir about it called Raceless, published in 2020 and covered by The Guardian. Her story was raw, painful, real. And then, almost like an echo, Meghan Markle repeated the same script 1 year later. The same percentage, the same reaction, the same silence. Coincidence, or something far stranger? Doria's hidden pause. Every road in this story leads back to Doria. When Meghan said her mother went silent on that FaceTime call, the world thought it was emotion. But now, knowing Georgina Lawton's identical experience, that silence feels heavier. It sounds like recognition, like a mother who knew more than she was willing to say. And don't forget, Doria has years of her life that simply can't be traced. Court filings in Riverside, missing years of her story. She went away, came back, and never explained where she had been. What if that silence, the same silence Meghan faced, wasn't about heritage at all? What if it was about another daughter, a secret buried decades ago? Here's where the gossip turns into something almost unbelievable. Georgina Lawton, that British writer, had poured her entire heart into Raceless, her memoir about identity and belonging. She described the exact same DNA percentage, 43% Nigerian. She described calling her mother, who went silent before speaking in a careful, almost guilty tone. Doesn't that sound too specific to be a coincidence? Now think about this. Meghan Markle, one of the most photographed women on earth, a duchess, steps out a year later and tells the world the same story. Same test, same result, same reaction. Almost word for word. People in the publishing world whispered that Meghan's team had read Raceless. Was Meghan inspired by Georgina's story? Or did she, consciously or not, borrow it? The strange bond between them. Here's the twist that makes this story even juicier. Georgina herself has defended Meghan publicly. She's written about the racism Meghan faced, praising her bravery. Almost as if she doesn't realize, or maybe doesn't want to admit, that Meghan might have recycled her own lived experience. Or maybe Georgina knows. Maybe she sees the echoes of her story in Meghan's words but chooses silence, protecting her peace. Because, let's be real, both women talk about identity in eerily similar ways. They use the same rhythm, a quiet realization followed by a need to tell the world. They speak about not fitting in, about searching for belonging, about filling a void. Could that really be coincidence? Or is it proof that their stories are connected in ways neither of them has openly confessed? Meghan's Nigerian homecoming. After her big revelation, Meghan wasted no time turning it into a headline event. She flew to Nigeria, calling it a homecoming. The trip was painted as a celebration of roots, connection, culture. But here's the thing, instead of triumph, it turned into embarrassment. During the visit, the First Lady of Nigeria subtly criticized Meghan's fashion choices and lack of cultural modesty. Her words about respecting traditions were seen as a direct rebuke to Meghan's approach. The Duchess, who wanted to be celebrated for her heritage, suddenly looked like an outsider who didn't do her homework. And then came the killer moment. Nigerian officials asked her for proof of her DNA results. They wanted to see the test Meghan had proudly shared with the world. And her response? She didn't have it. Think about that. DNA results are stored digitally. You can pull them up on your phone in seconds. Yet Meghan said no, she didn't have it with her. Nigerian authorities even offered to trace her ancestry themselves. She declined. That was the moment the whispers grew louder. Suddenly, what was supposed to be Meghan's shining heritage trip became a story full of doubt and side-eyes. Was this a real discovery or a borrowed identity tale? Doria's silence, a mother's secret. Let's circle back to Doria. Remember that silence on the FaceTime call? The one Meghan described as emotional? With everything we know now, that silence looks different. It's not just the pause of a mother hearing unexpected news. It's the pause of someone carrying a secret, someone who knows the truth but chooses silence to protect it. After Meghan's Nigeria trip flopped, the narrative started to crack. The proud DNA headline turned into doubt. The Duchess who claimed discovery suddenly looked unprepared, even deceptive. And behind it all, two women, Meghan Markle and Georgina Lawton, stood linked by an uncanny, almost scripted overlap in their lives. Both biracial, both searching for belonging, both telling the same story down to the smallest detail. The gossip circles couldn't help themselves. They asked, was Meghan so desperate for a narrative that she borrowed someone else's? Or was Georgina unknowingly telling a story that wasn't just hers to begin with? The unanswered question. In the end, everything points back to one haunting question. What did Doria Ragland hide? Because Meghan's story, her carefully built identity, sits on top of silence. Doria's silence when Meghan shared her DNA results. Doria's silence during the missing years. Doria's silence about court files that remain locked away. Maybe that silence was her last act of protection. Maybe it wasn't about hiding Meghan's truth, but about shielding another daughter, another life, from the spotlight. And if that's the case, then Meghan Markle's greatest secret isn't her royal feud or Netflix deal. It's the possibility that somewhere out there, she has a hidden sister.